the first Prime Minister of Penang, Tunku Abdul Rahman. He wanted a place to declare independence. So as he looked around KL, he decided that where Stadium Merdeka is today would be ideal for building a stadium to promote football as well as to use it as the venue for the Declaration of Independence. He was a man who loved his football, and he wanted a place where it was very central in KL. So at that time, the place was called Coronation Park, and the whole hill was a park, and it was very central. So he wanted it to be very accessible to people who could come by bus, and quite close to the railway station and so forth. So that's how he came upon the idea. The people who built it was actually the JKR, what was then called the Public Works Department. The person who actually designed and helped it get built was Sir Stanley Dukes. Unfortunately, he just died last year. And so he was actually working in JKR, or the Public Works Department then. Well, it is the place that was purpose-built for the Declaration of Independence, to celebrate the independence of Malaya. Now, if you think of one single event in the creation of the present state, present country of Malaysia, this event would be the most celebrated event. The cultural significance of this place is of utmost highest importance in this country. The fact that every year, without fail, TV stations, radio, newspapers take the same clip of Tunku declaring Merdeka 7 times over, standing at the center of the stadium. Surely must speak for itself. So it's so iconic. What would Malaysia do without it? It wasn't elevated off the ground. Actually, they dug into the hill. It was almost like a Greek arena, so it was sunken into the ground. And it used the shape of the ground for taking the tiers. So in terms of its construction, as I said, it was prefabricated parts, especially the concrete tiers. So that's original. That's very, very innovative in those days. As far as the grandstand is concerned, it was a concrete shell building. It was fairly new in those days. It was the single longest cantilever span in the country at that time, and in Southeast Asia, as far as I can recall. So I think in terms of construction, it was also fairly original. But it was also constructed in a way that celebrated Malaysia's tropical climate. It wasn't enclosed, it's very open. The floodlight towers, they themselves were unique in the sense that they were built off the ground and then hoisted into place. And so everything had to do with speed of construction, prefabrication, modern construction systems, modern materials, the whole lot. For Tunku, in those days, it was a decision, after he had come back from England and they brokered Merdeka for Malaysia. I think within the span of 1.5 years, everything had to be done. And so it was actually a very, very speedy job. And quite a record for Malaysia at that time. In the process of trying to conserve the building, we interviewed a few people who say they were actually there. So there's this lady who said, I remember the day very well. We had to get up very early in the morning, something like 5:30, 6 o'clock, and it was drizzling. Parents dropped us off at the stadium and we slowly just went into the stadium. I was sitting at the top left-hand corner, almost near the top, and we just sat there. And it was actually very quiet, she said. And slowly the momentum built up. So by the time the sun came out and the dignitaries started arriving, the buzz started to happen. Then the band came in, I suppose the music, the national anthem, everything. Then it became quite exciting. But she in fact described it as initially not being there, being actually quite a quiet event to start with, but eventually escalated into something quite memorable. If you take the idea a bit further, why did he dig a hole in the ground? Because it's part of the hill, and build a very low rise structure, almost as if it's hidden in the ground. Why didn't he build a multi-story building? In those days, if you built anything above 12-story, it was tall. So why didn't he make a 20-story tower? I think it also conveys the spirit of that time. He wanted an icon that showed equality, that did not shout out loud. He wanted something that was, fairly modest, something that would symbolize that it's for the people. football, the place of use for recreation, is for all walks of life. I call it Malaysian Heritage Building number 1 because it was purpose-built when Malaya was just founded and it was built for independence. Admittedly, there are other buildings as well, but you think about it, it was the first important building built for the public, in the public realm, for Malaya at that time, to embody a very, very important happening and concept and a time in history. For example, if you are asked to conserve an important building in Malaya or Malaysia now, which building would you choose? If all had to be destroyed and one saved, this would be the building. Because this is the core of who we are. Without it as a symbol, we would not know where our origins came from. It's more symbolic than any other building. Just because it's a stadium, very little decoration in it, people tend to ignore the fact that it's an important building.